If you need to pause, please take the time now to do so. Salama, salama. Welcome again to another video. Thank you as always for clicking in. I really do, really do appreciate it. This video here is definitely going to be a big treat for many of you, who have been following us on this journey and really digging deep into this whole world of the Bantu. And that the Bantu, at the end of the day, if you've been following us, are the Hebrews. Not just basically, they are the Hebrews. And we've been looking at the language. If you haven't seen that last video my wife did, she's been looking at praise and worship music, Bantu praise and worship music. Please go take the time out and check that out as well. Because again, it's just awesome. It really is. And I know I have some people out here who believe that we are worshiping Africa or something like that. I'm some of the things I've seen, I was like, no, we're not. We just been, at what brought us in where we are today and recognizing and understanding that we are the Hebrews. It hasn't left us. And that is, we just continue to seek him. We continue to diligently seek him. And in that diligence in seeking him, he has just been unveiling so much. And, when I first started out, I was just thinking, how do I felt like excuse me, in some ways felt kind of like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. And what I mean by that is, okay, the only Hebrews I know are the Ashkenazis. I didn't even know what that word meant when I first, came into the truth. And, but I was always feeling like, even with praise and worship and even some of the words and stuff that I would say, it was trying to say things that these Ashkenazis have kind of put out there. And in many ways, I've always felt like we're just trying to mimic them. But and that just never set right with me. But, hey, listen, I'm glad I'm awake. I'm being awakened in the truth and I'm discovering who I am and all that. But I still kept diligently seeking him, me along and my wife and many of you as well. And as we began to do that, the Most High began to start leading and guiding us into his truth. And what has been uncovered and discovered has been nothing short of just amazing. And just seeing like, wow, we ran smack dab into this whole, learning about the Bantu and saying, wait a minute, the Bantu, they're Hebrew. When you start looking at the language and the culture and the music and the history and all this stuff, they are the Hebrews. It's just really something. And when that revelation kind of slapped me in the face, it was like, wow, I see it, And so it's just been just amazing, an amazing journey. And, this video here, what we're going to be talking about, as you see the title here, is called Bantus in America, Telling Our Story in the Land. That's going to make a whole lot of sense as we get through this. But yeah, I tell you, if you are one that loves history as much as I do, you'll definitely have a great appreciation for this, and of course the scriptures are right there to confirm, these things. And it's just awesome. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. So make sure you take good notes, pause when you need to. Please take note of the disclaimer that I had in the beginning of the video. Don't just watch 2 minutes and dive into the comment section. Watch the whole thing, meditate, on that, and, then comment, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever. It ain't got to be that deep, but allow yourself to hear the whole thing out before you start diving in those comments. Okay. And that's about it. So let's go ahead without further ado. Let's go ahead and get started in this. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, in many cases, slaves outnumbered whites. Now, what we're doing now is we're looking at here in the United States, and which, anybody that has looked at, the history of slavery in this country, and how it developed over time, you will see that in many of these states, these slave-holding states, the slaves actually outnumbered the white people that were there. I kind of sort of understood. I still didn't agree with what Kanye West was saying, and that what he pointed out, I should say. And it's the same point, is that slaves outnumbered the amount of whites. And it's amazing when you look at some of the numbers. So let's take a look here. Mississippi, for example, says, according to U.S. Census data for 1860, Hinds County population included 8,940 whites, 36 free colored, and 22,363 slaves. This is Mississippi. By the 1870 census, the white population had increased 10% to 9,829, and the colored population had dropped about 8%, or 20,659. As a side note, by 1960, 100 years later, the county was listed as having 112,205 whites, more than a 12-fold increase. But in 1960, a total of 94,750 Negroes was only about 4 times what the colored population had been 100 years before. So, I mean, can you imagine that? You got 22,000, over 22,000 black folks or slaves, and then we were way more in the majority. I mean, but yet you see the low numbers there. That was Mississippi. In the Caribbean, and I just kind of put it all together because you got Haiti, Barbados, and Jamaica, and all those other islands. But this is a kind of a generalized thing here. It says creating divisions between slaves was essential to this. Enslaved peoples outnumbered free whites in the British Caribbean. In Jamaica, the ratio was higher than 10 to 1, and on some big plantations, it was about 100 to 1. So we're just laying out just the demographic wise, just how many slaves were there, in comparison to the amount of slaveholders, white people that were present. South Carolina, here we go. It says the colony had about 56,000 slaves who outnumbered whites 2 to 1. And then also you have Alabama. It says, so for 40 years or so, slavery was big in Limestone County. Slaves outnumbered the whites. So over and over again, you see this example over and over. So when you sit back and you think about this for a second, this outnumbering of the whites. So who do you think really had some pull when it came to the culture? Well, the numbers should tell you. It's pretty obvious. I mean, we are the ones that provided the music. We're the ones that, as far as the cooking styles, everything it is about the South in terms of culture, it was us. Okay. And that's just, so I wanted to show you this slide first so you can already be in that mode of understanding that, those numbers, as you're going to see as we go on in this presentation, it did really mean a whole lot, and it left a serious impact all throughout, particularly in the slaveholding states. Okay, so now let's jump to the scriptures, okay, because this is another point I want to bring out to you. You know how we do. First, I put a little point here, I'll throw a little point here, and then you're going to see how it all relates at the end, okay? All right, so here we go. It says the naming of places reflected the action that took place there. Okay, so if you go throughout Scripture, particularly in the Old Testament, you'll see that when anytime a place was named, it wasn't just the place, the name that was assigned to that place had some really significant, deep meaning. It wasn't like House on the Rock or Little Big Stone or something like that. Not that those don't really have meanings, but you understand there was a story behind the meaning. Typically when names were assigned to places, and also for people as well. But we're going to focus on places today for this presentation. So let me go ahead and get to this scripture. This is Genesis chapter 21, verse 31 to 32. And let's see, wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there he swore both of them. Thus they cut a covenant at Beersheba. The Amalek rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistine. Okay, so you should be familiar with that story there. That was Abraham cutting a somewhat of like a covenant between these other groups here, and they called that spot the Well of Oath, or in some places, or it may be referred to as the Well of the Seven, because I believe it was like not only was the old cut there, but also it was I think he provided like 7 sheep or something like that. But as you can see here in example number 1, Beersheba had a meaning. It was something that took place there. It wasn't just called Fifth and Garden. You know what I'm saying? So let's get to the next one. This is Genesis chapter 22, verse 14. And Abram called the name of that place Yahuwah Yireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of Yahuwah it shall be seen. Now you know the story behind that. Yahuwah Yireh, that means he is our provider. And what happened there? That's when, you remember, he was getting ready to sacrifice his son Isaac. And when he was getting ready to sacrifice his son Isaac, and the angel stopped his hand and said, nope, don't do it. And then he looked up and he saw that there was a ram in the bush. And so he called that place Yahuwah Yireh. So again, that name had meaning. It wasn't just I try to take them out in the basement, my cousins and them. No, it's the naming of that place. And they're really big on naming places. Like if something took place there, they gave it a name. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you, I'm establishing kind of a pattern here of what our people, the Hebrews, would do. When something significant happened in a particular place, they would give it a name, and that name reflected the action that took place typically in that location. All right, let's get to the next one here in the name. Let's see, Genesis 28, verse 19. Okay, and he called the name of that place Bet-El, or Bethel, like some people may say. But the name of that city was called Luz at the first. And that's Genesis 28, 19. And that's the house of Yah, Bet-El. That's what that means. Okay. So he, because that was where Israel was established. Okay. The house of Israel, that's where it was, boom, it was established. Okay. So let's get to Genesis chapter 32, verse 27 to 30. Genesis chapter 32, verse 27 to 30. All right, let's read. And he said unto him, what is your name? And he said, Yaakov. And he said, your name shall be no more Yaakov, but Yasharel. For as a prince have you power with Elohim and with men, and have prevailed. And Yaakov asked him and said, tell me, I pray you, your name. And he said, wherefore is it that you do not ask? Wherefore is it that you do ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Yaakov called the name of that place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. So Peniel, Peniel, sorry. And you're going to see some names. It's going to take some time for some of these days we're going to be going through today. So, just bear with me, and I have it on the screen here. So he named that place Penoel. That's what he named the place, which means the face of Elohim. And what name was given to him? Yasharel. What does that mean? He will rule as Elohim, or Prince of Elohim. Think about that, Israel. That's who you are. That's how this ends. You will rule as he does. And we can already start walking in that today. But isn't that amazing? So that's the name that was given. It was something significant. He wasn't just called Bill. You know what I'm saying? His name had it was a deep meaning that took place there, right? And his name that was given to him reflected that, right? Okay, so today, what we're going to do, we're going to get into something. I'm going to bring up this book, okay? This is a book that I mentioned in a video a while back, and I think I found it was like a pull quote from the book, I think. And I remember in the video I was saying, man, I wish I could get my hands on this book, but I could not, because the book, on Amazon at least, was listed for quite a bit. And everywhere you looked, they pretty much, it was like you couldn't get it at all. Like, could not get this book. Well, this is the book right here, The Bantu Speaking Heritage of the United States. And, I just put it out there and just like, man, it would be great to get my hands on that book because I'm sure there's a lot in there. Well, big shout out to the many, many people out there who basically was putting their eyes and their ears to the ground and looking around. And long story short, we do have a copy. Hallelujah. So I thank the Most High for his people on that. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at one section of this book. I'm not starting I'm going to start a little bit at the beginning. There's quite a few sections in the book, but for this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to pick like a section in the middle, and we'll just, so there'll be other videos as well that, where we're going to be coming out of this book. But yeah, you can see it's $912. That's here. Other places, I think I've seen it even way more expensive than that. And, but you always know when you are doing research, particularly about our people, more often than not, when you see the price of the books very, very high, that means there's something in there they're trying to hide. And I'm going to tell you, what we're going to see today, we're going to see what they were hiding. So I'm very excited to dive in this with you. Okay. So today we're going to be looking at a section of this book that's referring to place names. Place names. That's what we're going to be talking about today. This book covers a whole gamut of different topic or subjects relating to this title of this book, but we're going to be focusing on the place names section. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Remember, there's a reason why I gave these scriptures. Okay. There's a reason why I gave these scriptures, because as we go through, you're going to see, okay, I get it now. Okay. All right, let's get to the introduction. Now, from this point on, I will tell you, there will be quite a bit of reading in this video. Okay. So if you don't have the time, I always have to say this because some people, every now and then, man, why don't you just get to the point? Well, this is some very precious and valuable information. You just don't just breeze through this kind of stuff. Okay. So there will be quite a bit of reading. Make sure you have the time to watch it. And if you don't, stop at a certain point, come back later. It seems like people would get that, but I guess sometimes you got to repeat it over and over until people get it. All right. So let's go. All right. I'm not going to read this part here. I'll read right here. Okay. So again, remember now, you can always pause, take the time, take a screenshot if you want, and read it yourself. Okay. All right, here we go. Bantu speech has a proven ability to move into a culture. Oh, let me stop for a second. The author of this book, by the way, this woman, she spent 40 years in the Congo region. So she really took the time to really learn many of the Bantu cultures and stuff like that. And then, of course, she's over here, and she spent a lot of time, of course, here in the United States. So 40 years is a lot of time to learn a people and a culture. So that's the backdrop of this individual who's writing this book. Okay. Just so you can get an idea. I wanted to throw that in there as well. Okay, let's go. Bantu speech has a proven ability to move into a culture, to absorb it, and to change its language. It has adopted and adapted each new culture group as it has spread from its original nucleus area, probably in the Nok region of Nigeria, down under almost the entire African subcontinent south of the Sahara. The outstanding linguistic, homogeneity of this tremendous geographic region is due to this central body of inherited Proto-Bantu vocabulary that still ties all Bantu languages together and proves their once common source. Bantu-speaking slaves from Central Africa enjoyed a linguistic unity and ability to communicate with their fellow captives and that slaves of West Africa did not share. Very interesting point that she just brought up there, because she's saying that these Bantu people from this region, they understood each other because they shared that Bantu, culture, whereas those that were in the West Africa region did not. Okay. And so let me say this too. It's another thing worth pointing out. Benaiah Israel, sorry. He's done an excellent job with his series on Hidden Hebrews, and I would highly, highly encourage you to watch all of them. Very, very good information. What he's presenting in all of those videos, those videos he's done, is one trek of our people, going from going through Portugal, Spain, and then the West Africa region, and then heading on out to the new land, so to speak, the Americas. And so he's covering that piece of it. But there's also another piece, because remember now, our people, when we just scattered, okay? And so this other piece here is going to be focusing on many of our people who were also in this Bantu, in the southern African region, okay? So that's what this other part is. This whole thing, what it covers. Like when you talk about the Congo, South Africa, and all that stuff, those are our people. You have many of our people who are in that region as well. Okay. So that's what this is talking about, referring to. All right. Let's see. Luba Kasai, or the Chaluba, is the Bantu language used in this monograph, and as the basis for this linguistic identification of the Bantu speech survivals in the United States today. The diagrammatic, arrangement of Bantu languages inside, the nucleus demonstrates. I think that was it for that part. All right, so that's done there. All right, let's get to the next one. This is on page 18. It says, a most interesting aspect of South Carolina slave importation is its Angolian concentration, assuring a maximum Bantu language speech influence in that area. Wood explains in this concentration, roughly 7 out of every 10 Africans imported into the Charlestown during this period came from the area then called Angola, near the Congo River. It is unclear why more than half the Negroes leaving Luanga, Malemba, and other Angolan ports and English ships appear to have ended up in Charlestown. It should be that the separate traders who dominated the Carolina market found easier access at Angola, since both the source and the destination remained on the perimeter of the English slaving world. Not only were the Angolans predominant among the new Negroes, but they arrived in distinctively larger shipments. Vessels from the most distant of the major slaving regions averaged 260 persons per cargo. Since less than half of the trading ships entering Charlestown accounted for 70% of the incoming slaves, any calculation of slave origins based upon number of shipments would underestimate the Angolan contingent. It's a lot of people they brought over there from that part. South Carolina slave importation pattern helps to explain the presence of the Gullah language, Ngola or Angola. So now we know where Gullah comes from. That word Gullah, it comes from Ngola or Angola. Gola, Angola. The Gullah people come from the Congo area, or that region. Still spoken among the black population of South Carolina and Georgia. It also explains why the greatest number of possible Bantu language place names are found in the state of South Carolina. Let me go. I'll just jump to this part here. Let's see, that was 8. This is from another book here. Okay, and the name of it is The Gullah People and Their African Heritage. Okay, and that's the author there. Okay, so it says the Gullah language, Congo, let's see. Betal is like the Bantu word for handcuffs or shackles, bita. Chuki resembles Chuki. and that's spelled Tshuki, to close mouth. Kissa may be derived from kisa, to be cruel. Oshila is set to fire. Yoa is close to Yawa, to weak from hunger. And Chihaho resembles, that's another word. Okay. How could powerless people confer names on places? The sea island black was most fertile at naming everything, even the narrow saltwater drains interlacing the marshes when they are dry at low tide at Indisto Island. Pindar Town preserved the Congo word pinda for peanut, but white men probably did the naming after the word had become current in local speech. Among 17 place names of possible Bantu origin in Georgia is Piccola, which resembles, Impicula, meaning redeem me from slavery. And then it goes on. I'm going to try to zoom in close here so you can see. This is South Carolina, and we're going to go through each state. All of these names here, just give you a preview of what we're about to see. All of these names are all Bantu names. For those who live in the South Carolina area, I know both of my parents are from South Carolina. You'll see these names, and I'm sure many of you grew up and thought that these were Native American or Indian names. But as we go through this, you're going to see that no, they're not. They're Bantu names. Remember what I was saying in the beginning? Overwhelming majority of the people who lived in South Carolina were Bantus, overwhelmingly. So when you have those high numbers, guess what happens? You have some level of authority in naming some of these places. And you may ask, well, how were they able to do that? I'm going to explain to you in a moment how that was more than likely done. But this just gives you a map view of all these different names here, like PD. I remember going to every year when I go to my grandmother's house when I was growing up, we used to cross the PD River. PD, that's a Bantu name. Isn't that something? In many of these names, when you do a search for it, what you're going to see is that they're still in existence to this day. A lot of these towns are still in existence today. Now, they may not be black towns or considered black towns, but the name itself came from Bantus, Bantu Hebrews. These are Hebrew names. Isn't that something? Okay, so here we go. Let's get to page 31 and let's go ahead and read this. Many of the words listed in this book are words which would quite naturally be communicated by a little fellow from the slave quarters, wheeling away along the long, hot plantation day with the plantation owner's son as they happily explored the fields and streams together. Included in this body of vocabulary are words for various types of field and marsh birds, water insects, snakes, frogs, and turtles. It is well to remember that the years from 1 to 6 are the years of the greatest lifelong impression and learning. As each generation of white children have passed on, having grown up on isolated farms. Now, this is the part I want you to focus on. That's why I have this whole blurb here. As each generation of white children have passed on, having grown up on isolated farms and plantations in close contact with black playmates, the accumulation of each generation of a deposit of intonation, a distinctive, peculiarly Southern vocabulary, and a characteristic enunciation have combined to become what is commonly known as the Southern drawl. Let me see if I want to read this. No, not really. Okay, so this is the part that I want you to really understand, okay? And this is answering the question, well, how is it possible that, all these Hebrews were able to name all these places? Well, think about this for a second. Notice part here when it talks about how these people stayed on these isolated farms and plantations. Well, more often than not, the plantation in of itself was almost like an island for white people? Who was the one out? Who were the people out in the field? It was us. Who were the ones that were running the errands and stuff, going from one plantation to another if something had to be done? It was us. Who were the ones that were going out catching fish and stuff like that need to be caught for the master if he wanted fish? It was us. So we were the main ones that were always out in the fields and in the woods and up and down the rivers and stuff like that. So it's the people who are out there the most. I'm not going to, keep in mind, how did you name stuff? I mean, you just say, hey, it's that such and such river or whatever. I mean, they didn't say, well, what did Massa call that river? No. When you're in a majority like that, you just call it whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so, so again, going back to what I was saying earlier, because we were in the majority and we were the ones that are out in these woods and out in the fields and stuff the most. This is one way that we were able to come in and to actually name a lot of these places. Another way is, of course, there's cases where you'll see, as you know, throughout our history here, we would blend in with some of the natives that were here. And by doing that, you'll see some of that cross blending, if you will, of naming of certain areas. So that's another way. Then another way would have been, let's see, after we were made, quote unquote, wink, wink, free, black folks, we did control quite a bit of land. Now, it didn't last a long time, but nonetheless, there were pockets of time that we controlled a whole lot of land. Remember now, the South was decimated. It was completely decimated. So a lot of the slaves or the Bantus that stayed here, instead of going out west or going up north, it was all kinds of land at their disposal. Now, like I said, again, as time went on quickly, they straightened that out real quick, thanks to Jim Crow. But there was a window of time there where you had blacks who owned quite a bit of land. And if you own that land, what? You're able to name these places. So there's a whole list of different ways that we as Bantus were able to come in and to name all these places. And what's so amazing is that many of these names are still in existence to this day on any map. And we're going to Google some of them today. So quite amazing. All right. So this is the name of the chapter. Okay. It's called Bantu Names, Places in 7 Southern States. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually read through this chapter. Okay. There's some areas I will skip, but in those certain areas, you'll see enough to know, you'll have enough information on those pages. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this. In the search for Bantu language retentions, the category of place names is admittedly conjectural, nebulous as the assumption may be that any place named by a black slave might attain rating in an atlas. 3 factors suggest that these place names given in this chapter may be authentic Bantu language retentions. As a primary factor, the Negro is known for his propensity to name all the places with which he associates, such as streams, hills, small communities, and alleyways. Now, let's stop there for a second. Let's read that again, because we don't have to read this too fast. Some of this stuff, you got to get it. As a primary factor, the Negro is known for his propensity to name all the places with which he associates, such as streams, hills, small communities, and alleyways. What does that sound like? That sounds like Adam, yeah. That was one of his first jobs given by the Most High, was to name all the animals and name all this stuff. So that's an innate ability that he's given us as a people to name. We have this why our names are so creative? Because the Most High made us that way. You understand what I'm saying? Our names, when we are in our right mind, in our right place, they are so just deep and dimensional. You know what I'm saying? But that's because the Most High made. When you look at the names of some of these other people groups, not so much. But the Most High gave us this innate ability to assign names that are just multi-dimensional, if you will. But but of of course, where we are today. We just our people got to wake up so we can get back to that. And I believe the Most High that's one of the things he will restore, is this naming ability that he's given to us. Okay. All right, let's see. George R. Stewart, in his historical account of place naming, in the United States, says, frankly and pointedly, Pendertown in South Carolina preserved the Congo Mpinda, or peanut, but white men probably did the naming after the word had become current in local speech. That other page with the map on it, they got that quote from here. So that's why you're like, wait a minute, didn't you just read that? It came from this. Doubtless, many hundreds of small streams and swamps were named by Negroes, but their meanings cannot be distinguished. Reference to this trait is found in Names in South Carolina, a publication of the Department of English of the University of South Carolina. An unusual instance of Edisto Island nomenclature has been brought to my attention by Chalmers S. Murray, author and native of the island. Murray says the Sea Island Negro is most fertile in naming everything. Wow, that's just Adam all day. Giving particular names even to the little narrow saltwater drains or gutters interlacing the marshes when they are dry at low tide. A second factor meriting consideration is the Indian place names differ in kind. Now pay attention to this. This part is very important because some of this information here, one book can give 50 different interpretations. You know what I'm saying? So this part here, we're going to read a little bit more and I'm going to stop. Okay. A second factor meriting consideration is that the Indian place names differ in kind from Negro place names. The research necessary for uncovering this body of data began with no preconceived ideas, but as more and more Bantu place name possibilities came to light and were compared with their Indian counterparts, the distinctive character of, the Indian and Negro names became exceedingly apparent. Indian place names deal almost totally with nature, whereas Negro place names deal consistently with human or social situations. Okay, let's see. No. Okay, I'll continue to read and I'll stop after that quote there. Okay, William Reed, author of Indian Place Name Studies for the states of Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, states, the vocabulary of Indian place names is limited in scope. Consisting largely of designations of animals, birds, fish, soil, reptiles, water courses, plants, trees, settlements, and prominent features of the landscape. Some popular elements, for instance, in Choctaw place names are Bach or bog, creek. Hacha, which is river. Oka is water. Chula is fox. Kinta is beaver. Senti is snake. Tala is palmetto. Tali is rock. And Ushi is cane. Okay, so I'll continue to read here. Reed points out a second distinctive features of Indian place names. The use of several elements, often a qualifying adjective, which follows its noun. An example is the Chickasaw Choctaw term Oka Lusa, which means black water, or the name of the Mississippi town of Nitayuma, originally Nitayuma, which means bear wonder. Okay, let me continue to read here because I think as I read it, you'll understand what they're saying, okay? The map of Zaire, now we're in Africa, indicates a very different trend in place naming. Rather than using objects of nature, society-oriented Africans name their towns with verbs or verbal nouns, commemorating significant human experience, emotion, or action. Many place names begin with the grandiose class prefix or chi. That's TSHI, a chi. That's how you say it, which indicates a marked or memorable experience of the action of that verb. Now it makes sense why I read those scriptures, right? Now you understand why I read those scriptures in the beginning? How those names reflected the action that took place in that location. All right. Let's see. Representative random examples of Bantu place names are, man, I'm going to try these, okay? Chumbumbula, the Great Destruction. Let's see. Chiyanyama, Great Good Fortune. Let's see. Chifuka, the Great Dying, many successive deaths in a short period of time. And there's some other ones here, y'all. It says, let's see. Bue, the stolen bundle of cloth. And there's some other ones here. Let me make it bigger for you so you can see it. I'm right over here. Okay, so there's quite a few here. Bululu, which means bitterness. Okay, so that's how we named things. That's how, as Bantus, we would name things, place names. It was named after something that took place. There's some type of action. When you look at Indian names, and I did have something up here and I don't, but all you got to do is do a search for yourself and you'll see when you look at Native American names, straight Native American names, the meanings of it. I'm talking about the name of places and even names of people. A lot of times they're reflecting of just, it's more like of nature. It's more nature related. You know what I'm saying? Versus the way we would name things, it was reflecting on something that took place there. It was more meaning. It was a deeper meaning to it. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so let's go. One of the strongest arguments for the authenticity of this place names as Bantu retentions is that they connote vivid, true-to-life commentary. Many are starkly revealing of the uncertainty, indignity, and back-breaking toil performed by the slaves, while others throw light on the horrors of the remembered enslavement experience. Indicative of Bantu place names is the Angolan town of Buila, where the decisive Portuguese battle against the Bakongo was fought. This is applied form of the verb ambula, pick up, lift up a burden for someone else, implying the forced labor of a slave situation. A few place names, if read closely, will disclose the rare Negro grift for character discernment that sees through sham and is capable of enjoying a bit of sly, camouflage, fun poking at the master. A third factor, I'm over here now, a third factor that supports the theory of Bantu origin of these place names is the historical fact of extremely close Negro-Indian relationships. That's what I was mentioning earlier. It is possible that this physical amalgamation was accompanied by some linguistic amalgamation. Some words thought to be Indian may have had Bantu origins. This is especially possible in the state of Florida among the Black Seminoles. Many of the place-bearing names of Bantu origin are very small towns, according to the list of unincorporated towns in the 1947 edition of the Hammond New World Atlas. Responses from the questionnaire mailed to 125 of these small towns having possible Bantu place names indicated that many had lost their United States Post Office status within the past 25 years. Such a change would be expected, given present trends and a changing economy that has seen a shift of southern rural population to the urban north. The loss of post offices may support the contention that these were originally plantation communities, this is what I was talking about earlier, of almost totally black populations, perhaps named by some slave still fresh enough from his African background to have retained some of his Bantu tongue. So you see all of that. So, you know, after the war and after all of that, there was a lot of land at the disposal of many of the slaves that were left behind, or the Bantus that were left behind. But again, when you're in an economy that leaves you out, you know, how do you take care of all of that? You know, how do you do all that? So a lot of these people, that's why they ended up just packing up and going up north because you got a lot of land, but you don't have the money to get the tools to take care of it, or, the towns and all that stuff, particularly when you think about Florida, places like Florida. I mean, when you look at the land there, you're dealing with a lot of like swampy type land, so it would have taken a lot of resources to really take care of much of that stuff. So if you don't have access to those things, guess what? You pack up and leave. But the names, in many of those cases, still remain. Really interesting. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at each state. Okay? All right, so right now we're going to start with the state of Alabama. Let's go ahead and read what they say about the state of Alabama. The number of possible place names in each state varies greatly because each state had a distinctive pattern of slave importation. Alabama provides a happy hunting ground for possible Bantu place names because of Reed's Indian place names in Alabama, indicating names of dubious Indian origin, and because of comparatively recent slave arrivals in that state, like the Sea Island area of Georgia. Alabama continued to smuggle slaves long after the abolition because they were essential to the economy. At Plateau and Afriki Town, a settlement of Negroes, descendants of the last shipload of slaves brought to the South through the importation of the slaves had, become illegal after 1807. A brisk smuggling trade continued. The war between the states was threatening when the ship, I think it's the Clotilla, but they call it the Clothilde. It's spelled a little bit different here. It's interesting. Arrived in Mississippi south from the Guinea coast with a cargo of Negroes under the direction of Captain Tim Mayer. That's a Jew. There you go. I was talking about that on another subject today, but a wealthy slave trader. She was run up the Mobile River, at night. The Negroes hidden in the Delta marshes and the ship burned, but Mayer found it difficult to dispose of his cargo. A few were sent to the upriver plantations and some were put to work on the fortifications at Mobile, but the rest were left to shift for themselves. From this group had developed the present community. Okay, let's see here. Let's get to the next one. Okay, in the ensuing list, the Alabama place name appears first, followed by the Bantu word with its definition. Okay, so now this is where it starts getting fun. Now, we're not going to read all of these, but what you're going to start seeing is, it gives you a little blurb, like we just read. Then it's going to go through a list of all of these names. It's going to give you the name as it's listed on like the map, like the modern day map. And then in what's italicized is the Bantu word for that word. And you're going to see as we go through this list, the words are pretty much the same. Okay, so we're going to go through this and I'm going to pick certain ones. And what I'll do is I'll stop and I'll actually go to Google, do a search, and you'll see for yourself, man, these places are still in existence. And you're seeing with your own eyes that all of these places were named after Bantu. These are Bantu names. And for a lot of you that live in these areas, you may have if you grew up in these areas, you may have thought, well, they're Indian names. No, they're not Indian names. These are Bantu names. These are Hebrew names. It's exciting. So, okay, let's go ahead and dive in, okay? All right, but before I get, I know I'm like dangling this in front of you, but I do want to show you this before we get into those lists of names there. I went to Wikipedia, as you can see in front of you, because I want you to see this as a comparison when you're comparing the Bantu names versus the Native American names, okay? And what I did was I looked at the, place names, Native American place names, okay? So we're not going to look at all of these, but I just want you so you can see the difference between how we as Hebrews or Bantus, how we name things or places versus how Native American names, people or places. because you'll see a very distinct difference between the two. In some cases, as you'll see as this video continues, you'll see that there are some similarities. But again, keep in mind that is due to the fact that we oftentimes would blend in with some of the Native American or Aboriginals that were here in this land, so that's why you'll see that similarity sometime. But for the most part, by itself, there are some very distinct differences. Okay, so we're looking at Native American state names, okay? Let's see. Okay, so Alabama, named for the Alibamu, a tribe whose derives from the Choctaw phrase meaning thicket clearers or plant cutters. Okay. Let's see. Connecticut, from some eastern, another Native American tribe, and they said meaning at the long tidal river. All right, let's see, let me find some few other ones here. Ottawa, which means or rather Michigan, they said from Ottawa, Michigami, I guess that's another Native American tribe. It means large water. So as you can see, some of the names, it describes the area. So Ohio, from Seneca, Ohio, which means beautiful river. Let's see, Texas, ultimately from Cadio. They said it's pronounced Tache, Tache. Hope I'm saying that right. And they said that means friend. Let's see. Wyoming, from the Muncie, Delaware, and they give the name there, and they say at the river flat. And then, those are the state names, and then you can go to some of these other ones as well here. So, let's see if I could do another one. Some other ones. These are, I think, city names. But I just want to give you a few examples of that, like location names and how they just really describe the area. It doesn't really describe anything that took place there. It's just really describing the area, Like this one here, Mendota, is from a Native American word meaning junction of two trails. You understand what I'm saying? It's not really telling you anything that went there. It's just really describing what that area is. Okay, so if you go over here, Native American baby names. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming these are traditional Native American baby names. Let's see. So let's see. So when you, I'll give you some of these examples here again. And I'm not going to try to pronounce this. Ayana, endless beauty, and Amitola, like a rainbow. Let's see, this one, Anakin is soldier. This is another one, like an eagle in the sun, like a bird. All right. Arizona, little spring, little fawn, a winita, flower of purple. So you see the names. Now, these are names of people now, okay? These are what they say Native American names. And as you can see, it just describes kind of, it's more nature focused or centered, I should say, all right? So I just wanted to show you that how Native Americans, how they name their places and how they name each other, and compare that to, the Bantu culture or the Hebrew culture and how we name things. It tells more of a story of the person. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, for example, was it Jacob that originally meant deceiver or something like that? I hope I got that right. But as it turned out, he was, and then the Most High changed his name. And so again, our naming, the way we would name it really speaks of the person, of their character and all of that. Versus when you look at these, how Native Americans or the Aboriginal Americans, how they name it, it's more nature based. Okay, so I'm taking the time to really give you the distinct differences between the two. All right, and anytime, and I'll reiterate this one more time, anytime where you do see cases where, wait a minute, see, no, this describes the character of the person and all that, More often than not, when you look at it closer or you do the research on it, you'll see that that was because there was some mixture there between the Bantu and, let's say, whatever Native American tribe that name originates from. So that's where you'll see that kind of stuff. So, but we have a rich heritage and history of, really putting stories behind the things we name. Okay, so now we're back in Alabama. Okay, let's go back and make sure I'm in Alabama. Okay, yep, Alabama. So you might recognize some of these names of these places. Now I'm gonna do my best to name some of them, okay? But you can pause this video at any time and you could take a screenshot of it yourself and look them up yourself. And we'll pick a few of these and look them up, okay? And look them up, and so we can see, hey, these things are still towns. Okay, so here's one. It's let's see, Chetopa. And if you say it in Bantu is Chetupa. So Chetopa, okay, how it's written on the map, but Chetupa. Chetupa. It's a small portion or a little bit. All right, and they said this it's a name actually you'll find in Zari. All right, let's see. Let me find another one here. All right, this one is Cholota. If you say it in Bantu, is Cholota. It's said the same way, Cholota. And what that means, it means a dream, important omen to all Africans. Wow. It was named after a certain Miss Clark. Since this is not typical English name, it suggested that this is like Zama, Mississippi, may have been the basket name given to Miss Clark by her colored mammy. Wow. That went with her throughout life. So as you can see, it's a lot of story behind the name. All right, let's see, Cholota. Let me see something here, y'all. If I could get this up here. So I looked up Cholota. I could not find a Cholota, Alabama. What we can do is we'll just keep on grinding here, and let's see if we can find something else. Okay, so just keep going. This is Kotopa. And how do you say that in Bantu? Katupa. To give them to us, rations or supplies. To give them to us. So, and as you're looking at a lot of these names, you'll see that there's a common thread there. It's telling a story. It's typically, it's all around a central theme. When you start listening to it, it sounds like slavery. You know what I'm saying? And so let's continue. Okay, so Congo. I know I did look that one up. I did find that one. Okay, Congo, name of the Bantu tribe that occupies the area where the Zaire River flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, all right. Congo. So we're in what we say, Alabama. So let's look at Congo, Alabama. Is there a Congo, Alabama? And there is Congo, Alabama. It's an unincorporated community in the Cherokee County, Alabama. So Congo, Alabama. Where did that name come from? It came from the Hebrews. Okay. Let's see. Kotaku, split wood, firewood kindling. Let's see. Fence or rails. All right. This is imperative form of the Bantu verb. Let's see. Okay, so let us continue here. Let's see, looks like Ufalu. I'm sorry, y'all. I do apologize. Let's see, Ufola, and it's Ahola. It means loot, pillage, plunder. All right. Halawaka. Halawayuka. That's in the Bantu. Take the initiative, take the lead, proceed to act. Isn't that interesting? That's the name of it. Hulaku. How do you say it in Bantu? Hulaka. have the skin rubbed off, hands scraped from lifting heavy burdens. See how it's telling? They named these places after what they were going through. All right, so let's look up Hulaku. All right, Hulaku. Hulaku. Hope I'm saying it right. I mean, spelling it right. Hulaku, Alabama. Hulaku, Alabama. It's an unincorporated community located in the extreme southeastern Morgan County, Alabama. So it's another area that's still there, but it may not be considered a black town. It's just what that town was named by Hebrews. All right. Let's see. Katala. And they said this is a very common Luba Kasai personal name. Let's look that up. Katala. Let's look that one up. Let's see if we get anything on that one. We got Katala Hills. That's in Alabama. Katala Hills. Katala Hills. Where does that come from? That's a Hebrew name. And then we can spend all day on this, but like I said, I hope you really do take the time to take a screenshot and go through this on your own. Okay. Kushla. The Hebrew name of that is Kushala. To stay, to remain behind when others leave. See how the name is just has so much more meaning to it. Kushla. To stay, remain behind when others leave. All this hovers around what we were going through at that time and what we were going through, slavery. Loango. Loangu. That's the Bantu. Loangu means sweat, preparation. Let's look that one up too. Longo. Let's see. Well, you have, Longo, Alabama. It's another town. So you see a lot of these towns are still alive. Nyota. It's spelled the same way in Bantu. It means thirst. We were naming these places after what we were going through at that time. So when our people, anytime they passed through those ways, they would remember, this is where I was thirsting, or this is where basically I was heavy burdened, or this is where, and it goes all the way back in scripture. We used to name places after that. This is where I wrestled with the Most High. You see that? Weedowe, Weedowe, our very own common Luba expression of greeting used when meeting takes place between long separated relatives or friends. So let's look up. I'm gonna look that up too. You know, I'm just having fun with this. Let's see. Weedowe, Alabama. Let's look that up. Weedowe, Alabama. See, a lot of my Alabama people, all this time you were thinking these are Indian names. These are not Indian names. These are Hebrew names that had meaning. What does Weedowe mean? It means our very own common Luba expression of greeting used when meeting takes place between long separated relatives or friends. See that? Willona. Hey, isn't that good times? Willona. Polite, imperative, follow behind me. Again, what we were going through during slavery. All right, let's see here. All right, let's move on to Georgia. Let's see. The present state of Georgia was the only one of the British colonies to prohibit slavery during any part of its early history. Founded as a military colony, it prohibited slavery since it was desired that all men brought into the colony should bear arms and no Negro slaves was ever allowed a gun. Thus, no slaves were imported during the first 20 years after the founding of Georgia as a colony. When the importation of slaves did begin, the proportion of slaves brought directly from Africa increased with the passage of time. Let's see, from 1710 to 1718, only 56% of the slaves were direct exports from Africa. The remainder were all re-exports from other colonies, with many of those supplied from South Carolina. Georgia prohibited all importation of slaves direct from Africa in 1798, just a decade before the United States passed similar laws. From that time, all Negroes from Africa were smuggled into the country and kept in hiding until they could be disposed of to plantation owners. The winding creeks and waterways of coastal Georgia afforded ideal land places for such cargoes. And if you're familiar with like Savannah or anywhere like south on the southern coastal area of Georgia, like when I read that, those images come to mind, like the islands and stuff on the coastline. All that comes to mind. The conditions under which illegal traffic were carried on, are described in the Savannah Republican on December 11th, 1858. Corey went up to the Congo and took on a cargo of 750 young Negroes between the age of 13 and 18. He made another fast crossing and prior arrangement met Lamar on Jekyll Island at the mouth of the little Satilla River near Brunswick, Georgia. Lamar had paid $15,000 to the owners of the island for permission to land the cargo. The human cargo was soon disembarked and placed under the charge of old rice field Negroes, which were nearly as savage as the new importations. This was the famous yacht on Wanderer, some of whose cargo were still around in the 1930s. Wow. The contributions of these more recently arrived slaves to Georgia place names does not seem to have been as well documented as in South Carolina. But the following list comprises possible Bantu place names in Georgia. Catula, and in Bantu is Catula, which means he never comes. Wow, absentee master. Chimba, which is Chimba. Chima, sorry, and albino or white. Chosto, and then here is Chosotu, an accord between differing ethnic groups, confederation, alliance. Chula or Chula from Chula. I'm down here, y'all, if you're trying to follow me. Chula is the Choctaw word for fox, sorry. Echota or Chiota of the clan belonging extended family group. Then you got other ones here. Let's see. Pendertown, which means peanut. We mentioned that earlier. Swanee, for those in Georgia. Swanee, Georgia. Excuse me. Well, that's a Bantu word. That's a Hebrew word, y'all. It's in Hebrew. It's Insubwani, which means my house, my home. Wow. It's a Hebrew word. Swanee. And I bet you grew up thinking, it's the Swanee Indians. No, no, it was Hebrews. That's a Hebrew word. That's a Bantu. That comes straight from the Bantu. And Zuta, or Zunta, wrench off. Let's see. I'll go back to this one. This is upatole. And then in Bantu is upatul, which means hand out, shove out, push outside, terminology of heavy labor for moving heavy objects such as tar barrels or bales of cotton. Again, I have to keep reminding you again, all of these are words or names that the Hebrews gave to these places, and those names reflected what they went through, what they were going through in that area. So those areas were like literally, these names are memorials. So they're memorials for future generations. We, being the future generations, when we go through these areas, we're supposed to be reminded of what our people went through in these particular areas. But, thanks to education, American education, they wiped this completely out. And now we ain't even know what these names meant until now, right? Okay, so let's get to the Florida. Let me take this hat off because I just got in from somewhere and I was burning up there. Okay, that's better. All right. Florida. Let's read about Florida. Florida is unique with its history of large communities of black freedmen as well as escaped slaves, all living in happy and close proximity with the Seminole Indians during the years before Florida became a state. Remember, I said there are instances. If you know your history, you know we kind of mixed with the natives that were already here, and yes, they did look like us. So that's why it was just kind of easy to do that at times. But anyway, here we go. Florida first acquired free Negroes in the 17th century. Let's see, in 1704, the Spanish governor Zuniga opened the territory to fugitive slaves from British plantations to the north, thus established potential liberty across the border, tempted Carolina blacks, and tormented their white owners. Georgia was colonized in the hope that it would serve as a buffer region to prevent the escape of slaves to Florida. Carolina benefited, but Georgia, once slaves had been imported, found their runaway problem the biggest nuisance. Let's see, Spanish correspondence of the period reveals a regular flow of Negroes to Florida. Once in the region, the blacks lived as free subjects of the Bourbon King. They were soon numerous enough to be formed into companies to aid in the defense of the territory. At the same time, in the western parts of Florida, Negroes were immigrating along with the fractious Creek Indians called Seminoles or runaway. Let's see, Spanish law extended its protections over. Next slide. Hold on. Okay, yeah, there we go. Over them and gave them the right of land ownership. See, like I said earlier, that they were granted, in many cases, they were granted land, and a lot of times, in some cases, a lot of land. The Indians had obtained slaves as gifts from the British government, or had purchased them for prestige, value, and intimidation of the slave-owning whites. What to do with them once the novelty wore off posed an inseparable problem. Let's see. For the Seminoles, the Negroes therefore were allowed to build their own farms and had only to pay a moderate rent in kind to their Indian masters. A type of democratic, I hope I'm saying this right, vassalage was created, completely devoid of feelings of racial superiority. Intermarriage was common. Some who possessed a knowledge of English or Spanish became useful interpreters. The most astute gained the confidence of the Indians, and several as valued counselors of much influence. When necessary, the males willingly fought alongside the braves for the protection of their homes and their independence. Being free from annoyance, the Negroes worked harmlessly near the Indians. They settled on good land along the Appalachia. Y'all, I'm sorry. Let's see, Apalachola and Swanee rivers. If I messed that word up, I'm sorry. At least I'm trying. Many owning large flocks and herds. So again, this is cases where, many cases, particularly down there, where we as Hebrews, we were given large spaces of land. But like I said, you hit that fast forward button, what happened? With the emergence of as the American economy continued to increase, we were left out. That's what Jim Crow did. It was like, oh no, y'all may be considered free, but you're not going to take part in this economy. So you got all that land, but you're not going to be able to. We're going to make sure you can't buy the tools you need, buy the resources you need to take care of it. And so what it did was just ran them in the poorhouse until finally you're just sitting on this land. You can't eat dirt, So what do? You just, the white people come along. Hey, I'll take that off of you for $2. And sadly, that's what happened in many cases. It was very difficult to hold on to that land when you don't have the access to the resources to take care of it. Okay. Let's see. This was a happy setup until 1816 when the fort built by the British for the protection of the blacks against slave catching raids was destroyed at General Jackson's command. This was the beginning of the Seminole Indian Wars, which lasted for 7 years and finally forced the immigration of the Indians together with their black allies to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Mexico in 1837. In 1975, I interviewed a woman of Fountainhead, Oklahoma, whose grandmother had migrated from Florida with her Indian companions and extended family group. 3 Florida place names offer especially interesting opportunities for analysis in the light of the history of the farming and building activities carried on for years by the Black Seminoles. Many of them escaped slaves from South Carolina. The river and the town of, Osceola, near the site of the old fort, appear on the Taylor War map of 1838. Like so many place names, the spellings vary from map to map. And they go on, let me jump here. They see the Bantu verb achilla, to build or construct a house for someone else, is a fitting possible place name for this community of many homes of black settlers and their Indian masters and friends. So what shows up on the map as Aucilla, Aucilla, they're saying that it was very common for things to be misspelled back then, but the Bantu equivalent is Aucilla, spelled Ashila, and it means to build and construct a house for someone else, and that's what was going on down there. Let's see. Let me skip down here. A third of Florida place name of unusual interest is the town of Chumucla. The origin of this place name is unclear. According to the Reed, the Bantu word for, and then they give the word name, Chumucla, a motive for leaving, for getting out, for moving on to another place, might be an appropriate and thought-provoking name for a town inhabited by escaped slaves. Interesting. All right. So here's some of the names of areas that were named by Bantus in Florida. All right. We'll just go through some of them. And this time, we're not going to go through Google and all that. I'm trying to speed this up a little bit. Let's see. Alapaha, Alupapa, that's what's on the map. Alupapa in Bantu, it means let him come here to a safe place. Asuli, okay, we already did that one. Chakala in Bantu is, let's see, Chikele or Kala. And it's spelt right there. They said from ancient times of long ago, a small pond there. Okay. This is Chitola. And then here is Chitola in Bantu, place name in Labu Laji Valley, Luba Kasai area of Zaire. Excuse me. Let's see. Koli. And then it's spelled Colee on the map. Kole in Bantu, strong, well, powerful. All right. Cubee, K, or rather Cubee. In Bantu is Cubee, Kubi. Don't wait, don't tarry for me. Again, that's another reference to slavery. Etunia. Okay. That which we drink, a creek in the northern part of Putnam County. Let me see. Etonia. I've seen it. I'm going to look that one up. Etonia. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Etonia, Florida. Spell right now. All right, let's see. Okay, you got Etonia Creek, Etonia Church. So again, and some of these places, unfortunately, they may have started out at towns, but they may have, over time, they got rid of the black folks and then they just changed it to something else. All right, so that's another one. All right, let's keep going. Again, my advice to you is you can pause this video at any time and you can look these up yourself, okay? Kanapaha. And in Hebrew or Bantu is Kenny Papa. He isn't here. He isn't here. Koloki. In Bantu is Kuloloki. All right. Don't stretch out, expand, unfold. Wow. Okala. Now, Okala, I know I've heard of that. Okala, and then that's in Bantu is Okola. Drag off, drag out, haul. And it's a terminology of heavy labor. Ocala, Florida. That's a Bantu. So you think that's Indian? No, it's not. That's a Bantu word. Swanee again, Tomoka, and in Bantu is Tumuka. Let's get out. Let's leave. This is amazing. Usheta. That means walk with heavy feet, trudge along as in a slave caravan. Wakina, spelled the same way in Bantu. It means hate, be cruel, be mean. Wakula, and in Bantu is Wakula. Same thing, it's just one L missing. Talking, speaking. Welonzo. And then I think this is the same thing. It's Walonza, kill, shoot, kill. These are memorials all over this area, memorials to remember what took place in those areas. Let's see. Now we're in Mississippi. All right, let me make that smaller. Slavery was introduced into Mississippi by the French in the early 18th century. During this period of English control, both the soldiers who received land grants and the Tory refugees were eager purchasers of slaves to add to the number which the latter group had brought with them. All right, let me see if I want to skip on this. Hold on for a second. All right. I'll just skip over that. Mississippi turned up the least number of place names, probably because of difficulty in locating good bibliographical materials on state place name studies. But several place names are of unusual interest. It was a personal visit to the Mississippi Delta town of, Chula, that first had aroused my interest in the possibility of some Bantu mark having been left upon the southern map. Residents of Chula said that the name of their town was an old Negro word for a tadpole or a frog, showing that it was not the Choctaw Chula or fox, or at least in this instance. Another fascinating puzzle that the map reveals is a creek which Phelps and Ross mention in their study of place names along the Natchez Trace. Bayou Waiya, bending white oak, is correctly interpreted through the Choctaw words, might more accurately have been written Baya, which has become by Y Creek. The striking similarity of the name of this creek with the common Bantu folk saying must be noted. Baya, Waya, they go, you go, is always said at a parting of the ways when one person takes leave of another and goes into a different direction. This is so common a piece of Bantu folk culture that one cannot but wonder if he did not survive intact. Perhaps through Choctaw Negro slave relationships. At the time of the writing of this reference in the 1930s, the population of Mississippi was 50.2% Negro, a fact indicative of some Negro linguistic influences at least. The Natchez Trace study of Phelps and Ross offers another interesting place name. In many southern towns, the district where Negro household servants lived in In many southern towns, the district where Negro household servants live is Shakarag. Even though it does not appear on maps, it is truly a place name as Courthouse Square. Remembering that the Bantu letter A is pronounced like the A in father, it may be suggested that Shakarag is the Bantu word, let's see, Che Kalaka, social conversation, getting together to talk and gossip. Wow. An interesting confirmation of this is found in Hurston's Mules and Men. When someone entering into the group says, "All right, let me get in this shaglag," meaning let me get in on this conversation. And again, it's Chia Kalaka, being again the Bantu word involved. Correspondence with an elderly resident of Zama, Mississippi, revealed that the small town was named for the beautiful young daughter of the Franklin family. Owners of this large sawmill operated in that area for many years. As in the case of Cholota, Alabama, a town named for Miss Clark may be suggested that Zama was Miss Franklin's Bantu origin basket name, given her by her colored mammy, which went with her through life. Whether from Hausa root word good luck, or the Bantu Congo root word settle, or the Bantu Luba root word upright erect, it is a good name. The following list suggests place names of possible Bantu origins to be found in Mississippi. Bobo, okay, spelled the same way in Bantu. It means they or them. Let's see, Bolotusha. And then in Bantu, it's, Balachusha. Okay, they make you, cause you to be dressed, wear clothing. Baiwai. That's on the map. And Bayawaya. They go, you go. Hushpakina. Husha Makana, that's in Bantu. Blow on the mouth as coals for cooking. Kolola Springs. In Bantu is Kolola, to spread out, smooth out, open out, extend. Lula. In Bantu is spelled the same way. Lula, to, be bitter, refuse to obey, be refractory. All right, let's see. Tula spelled the same way. Forge, beat out iron, shape or make metal by hammering. Zama, upright, erect, settle. Okay, you see, it's amazing, huh? All right, we're almost through this. Let me see how many more we got to go. And I hope you're enjoying this. Like I said, I told you I'm going to take my time. I'm going to go through all of these pages here for you. All right, and we're going to cover as much as we can. Okay, North Carolina. This state does not offer as fertile a field for place name searching as other southern states. The history of the Negro in North Carolina must be constructed from meager and unsatisfactory materials, and to an even greater extent, this is true of the history of the slave trade, which is very true. One characteristic peculiar to the North Carolina slave trade helps to account for this paucity of records. A large number of slaves were brought into this colony by land rather than by water, and for these there are no reports comparable to custom entries or naval officer lists. Direct importation from Africa was comparatively small, possibly because of the lack of good harbors and a central port. Yeah, that is true. Correspondence concerning the place names of Makatoka is interesting because of the light it may shed on the process by which a comparatively recent Bantu name was acquired. All right, and then he has a quote here, and they say, your inquiry as to how Makatoka got his name was given to my mother for a reply. She was the last postmaster at Makatoka before it was discontinued in the early 30s. We are at a loss to give you the origin of the name. We knew the place was called Boston in the middle 1800s, with the name Makatoka being adopted before 1900s. Around the turn of the century, most of the land in the area was purchased by a group of investors from New York. A small town was established for their logging operation. It was the typical setup for railroads through the swamp. The town had disappeared with only pine trees remaining. Okay. All right, let's see. In Bantu, we find the phrase Mua Katoka in the little white man's town. That's what it is. Mua Katoka. If Negroes were among those employed in the logging operations, a fact more than likely their possible nickname for the small town established by the investors may have been heard often enough to be attracted to it. All right, so let's see. Make this smaller here. All right. The following list suggests place names of possible Bantu origins to be found in North Carolina. Let's see. Akwiti. All right. And that's in Bantu is Akutu. All right. And they say, let's see, from our place, just like home. Wow. Angola, Africa. Ekwan. Let him scrape, scrub, plane, shave off. Benaja. Made, and then Benzaja. Made to work, forced to labor. Buku. In-law relationship, wife's parents. Let me skip here. Chiowa. Waterfalls, wild duck. Congo. Kona. Let's see. Solola, talk, converse together. So forth and so on. So as you can see, again, some of these reflected what we were going through during that time. And you can see some of these states as very short, because like they said, because of the records. Okay, South Carolina, I think might be our last one. I'm not sure, but let's get to South Carolina. Because of the South Carolina primary role in the slave trade, it is not surprising to have found 93 possible Bantu place names. The search has been aided by a publication of the University of South Carolina, Names in South Carolina, which has provided a wealth of place name material. A few remarks describing the nature of South Carolina slave trades as pertinent. All right, let's see. There was an eager, at times almost frantic demand for slaves in the rice colonies, and the total listed importation into South Carolina for the years between 1733 and 1785, only 45 years in reality since the trade was suspended during the Revolution, was 67,769 Negroes. Charleston, as a busy port, was visited by more of the big Liverpool, Guyana men. That explains why so many of the imported slaves, about 36%, came from Angola or the Congo, and hence were presumably Bantus. The Liverpool captains brought slaves where they were plentiful and sold them where they would bring the highest prices. Charleston's prices were usually high, and the captains came to regard it as another West Indian island. The fact seems to be that Charleston settled in parts of, Baradinas. Hope I'm saying that right, y'all. Long retained an island mentally for rice planters of the neighborhood, were more Carolinian than they were American. The American import trade in slaves reached its climax in 10 years, 1764 to 1773, that followed the French and Indian War. It was a time when rice and indigo was booming crops that required more and more labor, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the following list suggests place names of possible Bantu origin in South Carolina. Alkolu, Alakana, Hope, long for, desire, exceedingly freedom. Wow. Ampezan, Ampezan, Ampeje, let him give to me. Ashipu, Ashipi, let him kill. Atakula, let him intercede for us. Wow, that's a good one. Let him intercede for us. Speak on our behalf. Beka, Beka in Bantu, exaggerate, go beyond the bounds. Bitter, bital, or bitter, handcuffs, manacles, shackles used in slavery. Boyano, muboyano, your friend. Boo-boo, boo-boo, imbecile, stupid person. Boo-boo, new boo-boo. That's where we get that from. So when you hear that, that's a Bantu word. Bolsis. Let's see. Bolchisha. To be beaten down, trampled upon. I'm down here. And then you got some other ones here. Let's keep it moving. All right. Because South Carolina is a lot of them in here. So you're going to need to look these up yourself. Nkumbi, large wedge-shaped slit drum beaten on both sides. Nkusa, lice. Kufi town. Kufi Creek. Elasha, cause to pour out, cause to throw. Let's look up some of these real quick because, like I said, there's a lot of, a lot of ones here in South Carolina. Let's look up Loda or Loda. Okay, let's look that up. South Carolina. Let's see. Loda, South Carolina. I told you, look these up. They'll come up. Most of them will come up. Malpus Island, Mapusa, gun waiting, Pendertown, we already talked about that. That's another one. Saluka, Salta. Let's see, Sala, we means weep, cry aloud. Let's look that up. Salta. Let's see, Salta. Maybe on that map that I had earlier, it's on there. Salta, Sauta, South Carolina. It's not coming up here. Hold on for a second. We're going to look this up here. It's saying it came up here. Hold on. Yeah. It's coming up here. It won't let me click that, though. All right. Well, it used to be a town that's, like I told you, there's some places where they just not even there anymore. But the reason why I was taking the time to look that up is because it means weep, cry aloud. Now, isn't that something? You talk about a memorial. Imagine going there and just doing just that, crying out to the Most High. He'll remember. These are places that he remembers. All right, let's continue. Let's see. Una, Wadbu, Undabu, a place of joking, teasing, relaxed conduct, indiscretions. Wambao, say it. Wampi, give it to me. All of these are Bantu words, y'all. Okay, Virginia. I think Virginia is definitely our last one here. Let's see. The state of Virginia was the first to acquire slaves, but it never imported them into the wholesale fashion of South Carolina. Our knowledge of the first introduction of Negroes into Virginia rests upon the concise, oft-quoted, and much-discussed statement of John Rolfe about the last of August, 1619, came in the Dutchman of Wari that sold us 20. They say niggers. They say naggers. That's how. Let's see. This brief record has been the subject of many conjectures, but little positive knowledge can be added to it. There is today little chance of determining whether the landing of the first 20 Negroes in Virginia was part of some abortive colonial project on the part of the group of Englishmen, or merely an accidental venture of unnamed Dutch trader. The arrival of this group was not followed by immediate Negro importation into Virginia, though abundance of laborers or large profits in tobacco may well have been connected in the minds of the planters. Not until after the Restoration, when England herself had actively entered the slave trade, did a Virginia importation large enough to be significant to come into existence. Okay, skip. Okay, let's just jump down. The following list suggests place names of possible Bantu origin to be found in Virginia. Aka, common explanation of surprise. Benna, the people of Benna. Let's look at Benna, Virginia. Let's see if something comes up with that. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Benna, Virginia. It means the people of. These are Bantu names. Kasha, or Kasai area of Zaire. Dongola, Ndogola. I fix, prepare, work on. Ka. Lek or leka. It means stop. Neola, Neuli. I'm sorry. Neola is on the map, and it's Nulu. I hope I'm saying it right. You will come. Unema, to be weighted down, to be heavy, to bear, have a burden to bear. Tola, Intola. Wakema, to be amazed, astounded, wonder. It's amazing. Then you got these here. Zakala, shake, tremble with fear because of the cold. Zakala. Let's look that up. See if we come up with anything. Zakala. Not getting anything with that. Zakala, Virginia. But apparently this was a place, I remember Zakala, I spelled that right. It was a place where our people were shaking and trembling. Zuni, water carrier. Okay. And we're at the end. Okay, good. All right. So I know that was a whole lot. I know it was, but as you can see, this is a awesome find, that we have here. And we're just getting warmed up with this book. There's a lot more in this book. And for those who would ask, oh, hey, I want to get a copy of that book. How can I get a copy of that book? Listen, for now, we're working on that right now, on how to get this book and make it where people will be able to get it. But for now, this is how we're going to be sharing it for now. But we will, trust me. I don't be holding out on y'all. I don't do that. But when I'm able to get it in a format where I can make it where I can share it with folk, I will certainly do that. So just hold on, okay? We're working on that right now. But thanks to the Most High, and his people, we were able to get our hands on this book, and we're getting it. I have the complete book, so I'm just like, hallelujah. And so, but yeah, we're working on that right now to see what we can do to how to get it in a format so people will be able to access that. Okay. But we'll let you know. You don't have to email me. Okay. I'm telling you. And once we get it done, we will have it done and we will let you know. Okay. But I hope you got something out of this. So as you can see, again, there, the whole notion that, we and Native Americans or whatever, we're one and the same. I was able to show you again that, there was, even though there were cases where there was some mixture there, all in all, even how we name places was completely different than the way they did it. Where their emphasis on names was more so focusing on nature, as you saw with the naming that we did, it was about setting a memorial for what took place in those areas. And that stretches all the way back to Abraham, all the way back to Jacob, all the way back then. When we would name places, we created memorials. These are places where I wept. These are places where I cried out to the Most High. These are places where I wrestled, until my change came. This is where we tread for freedom, and, so it's amazing. So it's more than just, see, our school system wants us to focus on places like Freedom Town, and things like that. Well, those are obvious ones. But as you can see, we left our mark. We've told our story all throughout this land, and they're still standing to this very day. Hallelujah. And so now we're discovering these things. And if you live in some of these areas, man, now you got some more tools. You can go and do your additional research. But I don't want to keep you too much longer than what I've already kept you. I hope you got something out of this today. And like I told you, it's going to be a long one. So we'll be doing more videos on this book. Just hold on. I'm still getting through it. And thank you so much. Big shout out to my brother, Jonathan over in South Africa. I really appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, for your prayers and your support and your diligence in what you're doing, for the kingdom. So thank you, Jonathan. And thank you for all my other, Messiah. Thank you so much. And all my other Bantu brothers and sisters out there. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate what you're doing for us here in the States. And you keep praying for us. Keep praying for us. Really do appreciate it. Okay, I'm out of here. Thank you so much. May y'all bless you and keep you. And until the next video, I'll see you soon. Take care now.